Welcome back, superstars. This is to episode 3 of the Kayfabe Soup podcast. I am your host, Ground Producer Junior, and today I am being joined by PBR, Intern, and Argyle.
Hello.
Ladies and jobbers, ladies and jobbers.
How's it going, everyone? Intern here, and I know the pleasure is all yours.
No, the pleasure is all ours.
Pretty much. All right. So this week, what we're going to be talking about, we're just going to be touching key points on Raw and SmackDown, and then we're going to be talking about what has been set up for WrestleMania so far. WrestleMania is 3 weeks away, and you would think that Raw and SmackDown would be good.
GRJ, quick question before we get going and into this. That's kind of the rundown of this episode, but how often are we going to be talking about PBR Arna's tag team championship in the predictions game?
Let's just say if you bring it up again, I will mute you.
Okay, got it.
I'm just saying, it is true. It's damn true.
Okay, you too. All right, so to get on, what we're gonna do? Let's start off with Raw, and who better to start off with than PBR?
That is me. Hello, everybody. I'm PBR, and I suffered through 3 hours of Raw this week so that you don't have to. And it was a rough one. There was not a whole lot going on, which is frustrating because this time of year, you're 3 weeks away from WrestleMania. You expect to have some pretty exciting TV, but we did not. However, we do have a few points coming out of it that are worth touching on. Number one, first and foremost, is Kurt Angle's retirement match, which he came out to announce who he chose as his opponent for this retirement match, and he chose, drumroll please, Baron Corbin. And that silence is exactly what the rest of the WWE universe thought. Baron Corbin. Baron Corbin. No, that silence actually worked out perfectly because that's exactly what the rest of us said at that moment, where we were just like, oh, who is he going to say? Is he going to say John Cena because Cena debuted against him in 2002? Is he going to pick like a Shelton Benjamin who was part of the world's greatest tag team? Is he going to pick Chad Gable, another Olympian wrestler, or a surprise Charlie Haas? Who knows? Anything could have happened. But no, we got Baron Corbin. Now, the talking point coming out of this has to be, this is a work, right?
It has to be. Like, do we even know if Baron Corbin has a night off at Olive Garden that night? I'm assuming his fucking manager, who's 19 years old, is like requesting a 1 month advance on days off, and he just found out.
I mean, that's a Sunday night. Like, that's a pretty busy night.
Exactly.
Yeah. No. Can't ask off 2 weeks ahead of time for a Sunday night. He's definitely got to be there at work for his other job. I think it's a work. I think something's going to happen in the next couple weeks where we get a different opponent. Excuse me. I don't know who that would be. I personally would rather it be John Cena. I think that's the most poetic opponent for his final match. Since it was Cena's first match, then this would be Angle's last match. The issue is John Cena even going to be there?
They could just get JBL to take his place and call him John Cena, dress him up in neon. Can't tell the difference right now from looking at him.
Or hell, you could have the Miz pull double duty. I mean, Miz did a great John Cena impression for the WrestleMania 33 build-up. So, he could come out as John Cena. Yeah.
Dude, give me R-Truth. I'll be fine with that.
Kurt Angle versus R-Truth?
Yes. Who's better? Freaking John Cena's protege.
So
I'm gonna wrestle Kurt Angle in his debut match. Truth?
Question, PBR. they did address, like, kayfabe wise, like the backlash from the WWE universe about the Baron Corbin news, right? They addressed that on
later
Raw.
later on in that show. Like, it wasn't very long. Like, Michael Cole actually brought up, the WWE universe on social media is not happy about this choice by Kurt Angle. They made sure to emphasize that it was Kurt Angle's choice. Even in Angle's promo and then in Cole talking about it, but they did acknowledge that the WWE universe was super unhappy with that. And then when Baron Corbin came out later for his match with Apollo Crews, he actually, I think he either cut a promo beforehand or during the match, he's trash talking and all this. Like, he acknowledged it himself. So between Cole acknowledging it and then Baron Corbin acknowledging it, that leads me to believe, much like the Dean Ambrose thing, which is a different discussion for a different day, it leads me to believe that there's something else in store.
I hope so, man.
I could see them
ridiculous.
Like changing it on the fly, even, and I could see them having wanted to go with Corbin in that spot, just because, like, storyline wise and their GM history for both those guys, the story makes sense.
Yes.
As long as you ignore the fact that we've seen that story get blown off on free TV already.
Right. That's the problem, is like the story of, like, the way Kurt Angle presented it when he made the announcement was fine. There was nothing wrong with that. He's like, this guy's been making my life a living hell for the last year, and I want to take him out in my last match. Like, that's totally logical. It makes a lot of sense. But from a pro wrestling fan standpoint, like, God damn it. Intern's right. Intern's right, where we've seen this match. We've seen it happen a bunch of times. This whole thing is kind of played out. The fans don't like Baron Corbin. I mean, me personally, I don't hate him as a wrestler, but the character, it doesn't do anything for me. And I feel like for this to be Kurt Angle's retirement match, this level, like, yes, the story with Baron Corbin is fine, but the level of, like, WrestleMania moment with Angle's final match, Corbin just doesn't meet that requirement to me. Like, yes, the story's fine, but it's got to be something bigger. It has to be more of a spectacle than Baron Corbin.
I dig the Olive Garden gimmick, and I'll put over Baron Corbin whenever I can. Like, I think he's been so solid.
Just because you get
like in bread. The ring. Salad and breadsticks, man. Keep it coming.
They're delicious.
I think he's been like really solid in the ring. He's come around to someone that I genuinely enjoy, and gimmick wise too. He had a good run where I thought that he was the best performer on Raw.
Oh man, when he was actually general manager and him dressing up made sense. I thought he was fantastic.
Oh yeah, no, a lot of people crapped on that, but I thought, like, Baron Corbin as a heel GM, especially with the drastic change in appearance and character and everything else, I thought he excelled in that role. I thought that was probably his best work of 2018, was the time that he was general manager, because he was coming into his own on the mic. He was believable as, like, just an evil, like, heel authority figure. But since he lost that job, his whole thing has felt really empty. Like, why are you still dressing up? You have no authority. Why are you still doing this? You're not what you were 6 months ago.
You really should go back to being the heavy metal biker guy that tells people to go back to Ring of Honor.
Well, it takes a while to grow your hair out that long.
Especially when your hairline's been receding so much.
His hairline was thinning in 2013.
He was a better Corporate Kane than Corporate Kane was Corporate Kane for a while.
That's a really good way to put it, actually. Yeah. I like that.
And he was the best performer on Raw until Lio Rush took over and took that spot. But I digress.
So the next thing coming out of Raw that I want to touch on is Ronda Rousey in her heel role actually has been better, in my opinion, than she's been for the last year. I think her finally embracing the heel side of things and just acting like a word I'm not going to say on this podcast, but she's been it's almost like she's way more comfortable being a bad guy which is weird because everything I've read about her was she doesn't want to be a bad guy. She wants to be cheered. She wants to be good, whatever. But watching her these last few weeks on TV, with the way that the whole Ronda, Becky, Charlotte storyline is gone, and she's had to be more of a jerk, I think she's embraced that really well. And we saw a prime example of that this week. Last week, great heel promo. Dana comes out, cuts a phenomenal babyface promo, and there's a little physicality. So, of course, you get a match this week. None of us thought it was going to be a real... obviously, it's Dana Brooke. But the way they did it with the squash, and then Rousey just... for those of you that haven't seen it, really legitimately looked like Ronda Rousey was going to tear Dana Brooke's arm off of her body.
Oh, yeah.
That's what it looked like. And Dana screaming to sell it. I don't even know if she was selling it. She might have actually been in legit pain for all I know. That looked really rough.
She had me there
perfect.
Too.
Yeah, and it was perfect. And then the whole... and then Ronda's husband, I guess. What's his name? Travis Brown?
Yeah.
Yeah. That whole thing was good. And then the way he just pulled her out and they left through the crowd and all that. I thought that was a really good segment. It was really one of the only good segments on Raw this week. But I think Rousey, the talking point coming out of this is that Ronda Rousey's heel character is perfect. I really, really like Rousey as a heel, and she's doing a great job of it. If she could slow down her promos a little bit, it would be better. But she's doing a much better job as a heel than as the gee shucks, happy to be here babyface. What do you guys think?
Well, I mean, it really fits with what she was doing in UFC. She wasn't a smile, happy to be here type when she was doing real martial arts instead of this quote fake scripted stuff, as she likes to say. She was the bad guy in pretty much all of her promo scenarios there as well.
Right.
It's just her
Pretty
falling
much,
back on
yeah.
what she knows. And it is working. It's not just working, it's paying dividends.
I think the real question is who's cutting her promos? Who's writing her promos for her right now?
That's a good question.
I don't know about her promos, but I think Vince Russo is writing her Twitter game.
I wouldn't be surprised, considering how on top of the Twitter game Becky Lynch has been for the last, year or so. I think it wouldn't surprise me at all if Becky was texting Ronda, hey, do this on Twitter, say this, and then I'll say this. And they're setting that up.
I wouldn't be surprised if she has two phones, one with her account, one with Ronda's account, and she's
just doing both.
There. Yeah, she's doing both, going back and forth, and then she's
that wouldn't surprise me at all.
Looking too good.
Yeah. The way Ronda's been on Twitter is basically how Becky has been really good at Twitter for the last year or so. So that wouldn't surprise me at all. So the third... I'm sorry, what?
Sorry, I was saying I could buy into that.
Oh, yeah. So the third talking point, the last talking point I want to take out of Raw is the whole Universal title picture. So obviously you have Brock and you have Seth. But then on the peripheral of that, you have Roman Reigns and Drew McIntyre. Both of them are essentially next into the picture. I have no idea what's going on with Brock after WrestleMania. I would like to think he's going to drop the title to Seth at WrestleMania, but as we saw last year, all assumptions of titles changing hands doesn't mean anything, because we all thought Roman was finally going to win at WrestleMania last year, and it didn't happen. So on the one hand, it wouldn't surprise me if Brock retained this year, but logically, Seth should win. Brock's off to the next thing. I think he's back in the testing pool for UFC. I think he's out of WWE for a little while this coming year. So you have Roman. Go ahead.
Does anyone remember when the next superstar shakeup is?
April 15th and 16th, the week after. Not the Raw after Mania, but the week after that.
Got it.
Well, they actually did.
Telling also to when we're trying to think about where the Universal title scene is after, because there could be more people there too. I mean, AJ could be there if he switches. Guys like Miz could be there too if there's a superstar shakeup.
Shut your mouth! Don't you even plant that thought in their head of taking the Miz away from me.
I was just.
I'm just saying, like, it doesn't have to be relegated to Rollins, McIntyre, because those guys.
You're absolutely right. Look at what happened with the U.S. title last year. Like, it was the first superstar shakeup episode, and then you had Jinder, and then you had Jeff Hardy, and the U.S. title switched brands by virtue of Jeff Hardy switching brands to fight Jinder Mahal, and crazy things can happen any week, really. But the superstar shakeup week, things get all crazy. So you're totally right. But in regards to Intern's outrage, allow me to have a rebuttal real quick with, I would gladly welcome The Miz on Raw and into the Universal title scene. Now, I don't think it's going to happen, but it could. AJ Styles, I think, is a SmackDown lifer. He's not going anywhere. Like, he is SmackDown.
It is allegedly the house that either he or Randy Orton built, depending on whom you ask.
Hey, you know what? For a lot of years, AJ Styles was in Florida getting a tan with Dixie Carter. So, these things happen. But anyway, real quick, just to finish up the Raw thing, I think the Universal title scene is interesting because, yes, they had Brock on the show and they had Seth on the show, and they kept them apart physically, which, if you're going to have Brock either next week or the go-home show, then I'm cool with keeping them apart. You don't want to, give people too much of them getting physical if you don't have to. If this is the only time you have Brock until WrestleMania, then it was a wasted opportunity. You have to have them get physical at some point. And yes, the night after Royal Rumble, Brock gave Seth like the 5 F5s or whatever. But this is the road. If you have Brock, use him. Having him come out there just to stand there and make faces while Paul Heyman cuts the same promo he's always cut, that doesn't work. I don't like it. I don't need it. Like, that doesn't help anything. Yeah, it is. And and it sucks because Paul Heyman is great on the microphone. Paul Heyman cuts a fantastic promo, but he has been cutting the same promo with Lesnar for 3 years now, 4 years. And it's just to the point where it's like, no matter how good he is, it just doesn't do anything. Like, it's just, it's boring.
I can almost skip that part of Raw.
Right. Like, last week,
that's the Universal title scene that I could do without.
Last week, they didn't have Lesnar. So they had Paul Heyman and they had Seth Rollins, and they played off of each other. And that worked out great because that was a different dynamic. It wasn't just Paul Heyman standing there cutting a promo. It was Paul Heyman working with another talent who's also good on the mic, and they worked off of each other, and that was fine. But yeah, this week, whenever you get that Brock Lesnar standing there with the title over his shoulder and then Paul Heyman talking, you're just like, I'm not even registering the words because it's the same stuff every time.
I might even like it more if they allowed Brock to say a few things in those segments, because Brock can actually cut a really good badass promo. Like, he doesn't give a crap about your kids, for instance.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why they don't let Brock cut promos. Like, I get that Heyman as his advocate is the character, so it would be kind of jarring to suddenly just have Brock come out and cut his own promo because everybody's going to be like, "Where's Heyman?" But they could do something where Heyman's just like, you know what? I've said enough on it. Why don't we let Brock speak for himself? And then he gives him the mic, and then Brock cuts a promo. Like, I would be on board with that.
Either that, or let Brock take the mic away from Heyman, not have Heyman handed to him. Have Heyman cutting his same promo he's been doing, and then have Brock, shake his head, and not having it. Grab the microphone physically from him and just say, "I've had enough. We're not doing this anymore. Let me tell you how it's going to be from
that." Would be a really nice change of pace. Like, I think that would be, even if Brock ends up cutting a bad promo, just the fact that he did that. Ooh, that's different. Like, I'm excited for that. That's cool. So that'd be cool.
Promo too. Just let him shoot.
But the biggest thing coming out of this, and then we got to move on to SmackDown, but the biggest thing coming out of this is So you have Brock, you have Seth, but the thing is, you also have Roman and you have Drew. And I think both of those two guys are being groomed to be next in line. Now, whether Lesnar actually leaves after WrestleMania or whether he leaves in the summer, whatever his summertime schedule is, one can hope that Seth comes out of WrestleMania as Universal Champion, and so now he needs new opponents. And you have Drew and you have Roman. And I think the thing I took away from this week's Raw is that both of those guys are being groomed as the next in the Universal title scene, even if they're not saying it. Like the way that they're building both of those two guys is, yeah. So after WrestleMania, the night after WrestleMania, don't be surprised if one of these two guys, or both, jumps into that scene, and that's what you have going forward. And I think I love it personally. Like, I like Roman Reigns. I love Drew McIntyre. Love Seth Rollins. If those are the three guys in the Universal title picture after Mania, going for a few months, even going all the way to SummerSlam with whatever they want to do, I'm on board with it. What do you guys think?
I'd be very happy with that personally. I think Drew Mack should have been in that title scene, I'd say, within maybe a month of him showing up on the main roster practically.
Yeah.
He was custom built to be a top level WWE superstar. I mean, he was Vince McMahon's chosen one at one point, for goodness sakes. Although we all know how well that went.
Oh, it went great. He never went anywhere. Like, he was the chosen one, and then he's been here for the last 8 years.
Yes, exactly.
I'm gonna double down on my Miz prediction. You've heard it here for Superstars. I think Miz will be a part of the Universal title scene sometime next year. He's been how many time Intercontinental Champion, and for how many days? I don't think
8.
that's a 8 time.
8 times.
Yeah, that's nowhere to where he's going to be going. Think about where you fit him going forward. I think that's the perfect place for him.
I don't know. I fit him as the perfect babyface foil to the now heel Daniel Bryan, but that's just me.
Could be.
If you're right, like if the Miz actually gets sent to Raw and gets into the Universal title scene and all that, like, I'm totally on board with it. I love the Miz. I think he's been doing the best work of his career for the last year or two. Ever since that one promo on Talking Smack where he went off on Daniel Bryan, I think since that moment, the fans have embraced him as a talent. Whether or not they love him or hate him, babyface or heel is a different story, but they've embraced him as a talent. And I think from that moment on, he has embraced himself I've been here for a long time, yeah, sure, but I can really do this now. I'm on fire. And I don't think he's ever stopped since then. Like, from that moment, he has just been, as soon as you give him the mic, as soon as you give him the ring, he has been taking the show every single time.
I think you're absolutely right. And think about this. How often now are they actually going forward with and pushing their baby faces that are getting natural responses and reactions?
Not very often.
I could name Kofi.
Sort of. We'll get to that in SmackDown.
Becky Lynch.
They try to turn her heel.
It's happening, and I could see it with Miz, especially after that promo he cut, which we can get to in our SmackDown. But
yeah, I was ready to get to that as my first SmackDown talking point. Actually,
should we segue?
Hold on. Before we segue into the SmackDown talking points, let me give you one last thing. There was a reference made to Miz being Intercontinental Champion. It was 8 times, and just in case anybody's wondering, he was Intercontinental Champion for 104 days, which is second most on the Grand Slam Champions list. I thought I'd throw that out there. On to SmackDown.
All right, so funny enough, we closed Raw talking about The Miz. I'm going to open SmackDown talking about The Miz.
Naturally.
Because talking about The Miz is something I've been doing since that Talking Smack promo back a couple of years ago when he became one of my favorite things ever. So yeah, we opened the show last night with fired up babyface The Miz. he cut a passionate promo, basically acknowledging the fact that yes, he's been a human piece of crap for the past year or past many years as part of him making sacrifices to try to achieve what he wants, and that unlike Shane McMahon, he's a guy that's never had to earn anything. He's had to work his ass off to get everything he's gotten into WWE. And oh my God, I couldn't be loving this babyface Miz the most, as I, not to reference my own works, but as I said in my review, if you really strip away the arrogance that he's wrestled with, or that he's portrayed himself with for so many years, the cheating, all the heel mannerisms, to me, The Miz might be the most easy to love wrestling character possible. If you think about it, he's one of us. He was just a run-of-the-mill wrestling fan who was told he would never make it, worked himself to the bone to improve himself. Actually hit that the top level before getting nerfed like crazy by The Rock and John Cena, which I've already talked about at length in one of my WrestleMania reviews, and kind of fell to the wayside.
It's okay to put yourself over, intern.
Hey, if someone's got to put me over, no one's going to do it better than me, right? But yeah, I mean, he really is. For those of us that love wrestling and have ever considered wanting to get in it, The Miz is the kind of guy that we wrestling fans can look at and say, this guy's one of us. If he can do it, maybe some of us can. And it might inspire a whole new crop of wrestling fans that might otherwise think, no, I can't do this, to change their mind, try, maybe become guardians of the independent.
You know what about that promo, and I don't know if anyone else got this, but that last, like right when he finished up in his last line, he stared at the mic, or he stared at the camera, put the mic up, and he had a little flip of the mic. Everyone now in their WrestleMania promos and lines, they're just throwing the mic down, right? That's to show you how serious I am. Let's get down to business, and they're hurling the mic at the floor. But this was just a really subtle flip. And to me, and what I got from that immediately was basically like a message to the boys in the back. Like, guys, that is how you do it. And that is how it's done right there. So please,
I can see that.
Take what I just did right there. Please pay attention.
Yeah, that actually, I've never thought of it that way, but that is a very, very valid point.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought of that either, but, that's definitely it's an interesting thing to think about. You might be onto something.
I think that's a Miz thing to do too, and even
very, very much so.
Because as great as a performer as Miz has been, I think we all know that he believes that too. He knows that he's working his tail off, and he has.
Oh, for sure.
So when he cuts a promo like that, that's as good. He knows there's value in it. So he's like, "Here you go, try it now. your turn."
And I really can't wait for him to prove you wrong and to stay on SmackDown Live and to topple Daniel Bryan for the world title, not the Universal title. Just saying.
I really, as somebody who has to watch Raw every single week, I would love for The Miz to come to Raw, because it would make things so much better.
It would, as long as they didn't use him like they did the last time he was on Raw and just kind of have him float in the mid-card.
I'll be perfectly honest, I don't even remember that. And I know I watched it. I know I watched it a bunch, and I couldn't tell you a single thing he did on Raw.
He brought The Miz Taraj. That's literally the only thing I can tell you.
Oh, The Miz Taraj. That's right.
So I guess it wasn't
Those
all
guys
bad.
were fun. Those guys were fun. The B Team.
Remember when they were a thing?
Yeah.
I can't wait to bookmark this episode and come back to it when Miz is Universal Champion. And just put myself over even more.
If that happens, I will gladly give you the credit you deserve. Like, I'd love to see it happen, but I'm not going so far as to predict it. Like, I would just like to see it.
GRJ, should we talk about our tag team championships of the predictions game?
Oh, you mean the tag team championships that Argyle and I currently in the predictions game?
Yes. It's been a minute since we dropped that. I felt it necessary. We can get to it later.
So what these guys don't know is that I just muted them. So intern, let's continue. Yeah,
Okay,
I totally muted them. They're totally on timeout. I just put our guy out in the corner. So, intern, let's move on.
So really the only other talking point I had coming out of SmackDown is it's a tiny little event that only kind of sort of took up half of the show, and that is of course Kofi Mania almost succeeding. The little engine that could almost made it to the top of the hill, and then someone dropped a mountain on him. By which, of course, I mean Kofi Kingston having to run the gauntlet of Sheamus, Cesaro, Rowan, Samoa Joe, and Randy Orton. Wrestled for, I think Tom Phillips said it was 55 minutes. It was really closer to 48, 49 minutes, but I mean, WWE is always with the exaggeration, right?
It's what they do.
Exactly. Pins. He wrestles his ass off. He gets the crap beat out of him, but he still pins Sheamus. He pins Cesaro. Then Rowan just beat the snot out of him, gets himself disqualified by hitting him with a chair, puts him through a table. Samoa Joe comes out. Samoa Joe beats the snot out of him, but Kofi miraculously pins him. Then he gets choked out. Randy Orton comes out and beats the snot out of him. Kofi somehow manages to pull out the win. Everyone's happy. Then Vince McMahon comes out, and if that did, I don't know why why the air in the room wasn't deflated the moment they saw him, because you knew there had to be something else.
It's because people love seeing Vince McMahon. Like, as soon as his music hits, people are just like, they're cheering along to it. They're like, yes, no chance. That's what you got. And they're all excited to see him. Like, even though they know he's about to dispense some bad news, he's definitely still like, all he has to do is walk out and people will cheer. Like, they love him.
It's true. It is
even
true.
Though they hate him. They hate him.
Yeah.
But they also love him.
I do think the WWE universe sometimes does have the memory of a goldfish, so that helps as well.
Oh, absolutely.
But anyhow, Vince comes out, congratulates Kofi, and tells him he's going to WrestleMania. If he can beat this one last person, that's a fully fresh Daniel Bryan. Oh, Kofi tried. He really did try, but in the end, he got hit with a Busaiku knee. He gets pinned. Kofi is not going to WrestleMania. And we have to assume, of course, that he will never make it to WrestleMania, and the storyline is dropped. Clearly, that's the case. Clearly.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, that's how professional wrestling. He lost. He had to win the gauntlet match to get there, and he won the gauntlet match. But then Vince was like, "Nope, you got one more opponent," and then he lost. So he lost the gauntlet match. He's not going to WrestleMania. End of story. I guess we just move on to talking about anything else, right?
Yeah, exactly. I just want to point one thing out, though. I feel like my favorite part of the story isn't even what happened on the show. It's reading the internet's reaction to it afterwards. Oh, man, my
people
God.
are great.
Oh,
people get worked.
The fact that people are even going as far as to say that Vince McMahon is racist, which, I mean, fair point in some ways. He is the one, and I apologize for the racial slur here. He is the one that told Carlito to spick it up when talking. So.
Jesus.
Yeah, that was a thing. That was a thing that apparently happened.
I'll be perfectly honest. I don't even remember that, but I can definitely.
It wasn't on the show, but it wasn't on the show. It was backstage. One of the former writers. I don't know if it was Court Bauer or someone else was telling that story, and it's just like, oh God, why is it I can see that being accurate?
It just sounds like a Vince thing to do.
Yeah.
I think. And honestly, I think we need more story out of this from Vince and why he's doing this to Kofi.
We don't really have a motivation beyond Kofi Kingston is a B+ player, but it's not even like Vince has presented an alternate agenda, like someone he wants in that title picture. He just really seems like he has a random hate on for Kofi for no reason, despite the fact that Kofi Kingston and the New Day make him a ton of money in merch sales, which, I mean, that alone you think would buy him a little bit of equity.
I think. Okay. Kofi Kingston has put in the work for 11 or so years. Like, he's been around. He's the guy that, like, every Royal Rumble, he's going to do something cool. He's a very easy person for the fans to get behind. And so then when Mustafa Ali got hurt, because remember, Mustafa Ali was supposed to be in this storyline.
Poor Mustafa Ali.
Exactly. Mustafa Ali gets a concussion the week of Elimination Chamber. Suddenly, Kofi's just thrust into this role. And the only reason he was thrust into this spot is because he's the best worker that they have. Like, they're just like, we need somebody to go an hour in the gauntlet. Throw him in there. We need somebody to take Daniel Bryan to the limit. Well, Kofi can do that too. And so I don't know if everything that's happened since then is exactly what Mustafa Ali was supposed to do, but I do know that Kofi's excelled at everything that he's had to do because he is a great professional wrestler. Now, storyline-wise, you talk about like why Vince might not want Kofi to be in the title match, why people might be down on him, why he's a B-plus player. It's the same storyline that Daniel Bryan did at WrestleMania 30. It's literally the same thing. And the best part is...
Except it's missing quite a few chapters to it.
Well, the best part is that this time around, Daniel Bryan is the enemy. So he's still in the story, but he's on the opposite side. And personally, I love the way it's working out, because I mean, obviously Kofi's going to be there. The way it's gone the last few weeks, there's no chance that he's not. He will be there. And I'm curious to see what they do in the next 2 weeks to get him there. Because remember, in 2014, it took Daniel Bryan winning the opening match at Mania against Triple H just to get into the title match. And I wouldn't be surprised if we get something similar this time, where Kofi has to win a match at the beginning of the show to get into that match at the end of the show. And that's where you come into, well, who would Daniel Bryan be facing anyway? And that's where I think Kevin Owens comes into play.
Yeah, that's pretty much where I was thinking. I mean, Kevin Owens was Vince McMahon's choice earlier. Why not do it again?
So you get a main event this year that's supposed to be Daniel Bryan and Kevin Owens, and they've already got history. There's plenty of history there. Yeah, hell, it goes right back to last year with Bryan and Shane versus Owens and Zayn, which I didn't mean to rhyme, but there you go. But I think that's the match. And then if Kofi can fight his way into that, it would be Bryan, Owens, and Kofi. And as we saw at Fastlane, like Bryan, Owens, and Ali put on a great triple threat match. You put Kofi in there, I think that could be a phenomenal triple threat main event. That's what I think is going to happen. You guys take it from...
No, that actually sounds about pretty much how the scenario plays out in my mind, and I really hope you're right, because that's exactly the way I want the scenario to play out, really.
So who would Vince use as that last match, or that last chance for Kofi? Who would he use? Like how you brought up for the other WrestleMania, it was Triple H versus Bryan, right?
Probably Rowan, I'd say. Put off against Daniel Bryan's giant redwood murder machine.
Yeah.
Oh, Rowan. I thought.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, if Rowan keeps working the way he has been over the past couple of weeks as a suddenly dynamic big man hoss, that could actually be a really fun one-on-one match.
That could work, yeah.
Well, give him Cena. Why not?
Who?
Oh, if it's Cena, then there's no way Kofi's winning.
Give him Cena.
It has to. I think interns right here, because it'd be like Bryan being like, dude, you need to stop this guy, you know? It's just one of his... I don't want to call him a henchman, but that's pretty much what he's going to turn into.
No, he's not his henchman. They're friends. They hang out. Bryan said so.
Come on.
And they're on the same page, environmentally speaking. Like they're...
And intellectually.
Okay, it's his sub-boss then. It's his sub-boss, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
So, there's that.
But yeah, that's pretty much everything I wanted to say about SmackDown.
All right, so Raw and SmackDown for this week are in the books. Now we're going to move on to WrestleMania talk.
The worst of WrestleMania.
Which, in my mind, sometimes the worst can be the best, depending on what kind of worst.
Well, the best thing about any sort of, if you talk about best and worst of anything, but especially wrestling, because wrestling is one of those weird things where people have different flavors. People like different things. Everything is so subjective with wrestling that I could go on a 10-minute talk about how great this one match is, but somebody who likes a different type of wrestling hates that match.
Yeah.
But they love this other match. And it's great that wrestling has such a diverse fan base, and everybody's into different things.
Some people thought that David Arquette as world champion was a good idea, bro.
Well, listen, Vince Russo, I did not think that, but hey, you know what makes that okay is that David Arquette gave all of his profits from wrestling to the families of Brian Pillman and Owen Hart, and one other one that escapes me right now.
Drozdov.
Drozdov, yes, that's the one. If you didn't love David Arquette before, that's just a great reason to. Plus, now he's getting back into wrestling. He's been doing matches
and
on
pissing
the
Jim Cornette off by doing hardcore matches.
Exactly. He took a freaking light tube to the neck. Whatever.
That's hardcore.
But anyway, so yeah, we're gonna talk about the worst of WrestleMania.
Yeah, the worst of WrestleMania
categories.
Yeah, a bunch of different categories. We're gonna be doing worst match, worst moment, worst show, the worst venue. We have a lot of celebrity involvements in there. Which one was the worst? And we're gonna pretty much do this in a rapid fire type deal. So I'm kind of thinking is you say which ones you think is the worst one. You give me a sentence or two of why. We go on to the next person, same thing, and then we'll just keep going.
Sounds
all right.
Good.
So who wants to start?
I'm ready.
All right, go for it. PBR. We're gonna start with worst match.
I think the worst match in WrestleMania history, and if you ask me on any given day, any given time, I probably have a different answer for you. But right now, at this moment, I think the worst match that comes to mind is probably Michael Cole versus Jerry Lawler at WrestleMania 27. And the reason I say that is because I'm all for a spectacle. I know WrestleMania is all about spectacle, and you get these special matches, special moments that don't happen, any other time. But this one was just ridiculous because you have Jerry Lawler, one of the best professional wrestlers in history, versus an announcer. And they had to go back and forth. They had to stretch it out. You have Stone Cold as a guest referee. And if they didn't learn anything from WrestleMania 20, when Stone Cold is the guest referee, it means the match is going to be terrible. At 20, he was the referee for Goldberg and Lesnar, and everybody hated it for good reason. Which, by the way, that was my toss-up between the two as to which one was the worst match. But I'm going with this one just because, ultimately, in the end, Michael Cole can continue to remind us that he is 1-0 at WrestleMania. He is undefeated. That's my choice. Intern, what do you think?
Well, that's pretty much my go-to answer for the reasons you brought up, and the fact that it also ended on a dusty finish.
That's true. That's true.
So in the interest of going with something different, I'm going to go with, and I'm even trying to remember what number this was off the top of my head here, Bret Hart versus Vince McMahon. WrestleMania 26.
Yep, yeah. 26. That was bad.
Do you like watching a senile, stroked out concussion victim beat the crap out of a senile millionaire uncomfortably with a chair for 20 minutes or whatever it was?
It felt like 20 minutes. It was actually, hold on, I can get you that. It was actually 26, Bret Hart, Mr. McMahon. It was actually only 11 minutes. 9 seconds.
I'm pretty sure I felt my hair growing gray watching that. Holy.
The funniest part is I have a tab here tabulating pinfall attempts. And in this match, there were 0 pinfall attempts. None. Bret Hart won by submission with the sharpshooter. Nobody went for a pin at any point. It was 11 minutes. It felt like 25. I think that's a solid choice.
If you took a shot every time someone got hit with a chair, you would be dead.
Oh man, like watching Bret Hart beat McMahon with that chair was almost like watching Rock beat Mankind with that chair at Royal Rumble '99, where it's like, God, he's dead. Stop it. He's already dead.
It started so satisfying. If we got 2 minutes of that, that would have been the best thing ever.
That's all you needed to do. Like that the whole match was built on that.
8 minutes later, he's still going and just no.
Exactly. Argyle, do you have anything for this one?
I think this is why we're tag team champions, PBR, because I'm on the same page with you with Lesnar and Goldberg. I think just to give it some context, I believe this was when neither Lesnar or Goldberg was re-signing, right? They both wanted out.
Yeah, they were both on their way out. Goldberg was leaving because he didn't want to do all of the touring and all the dates. Lesnar was leaving because he wanted to go play football. And this is when he was going to try to join the Minnesota Vikings. And it was 2004. It was the age of the internet exploding. So all the fans knew already.
Exactly.
Everything had come out in the dirt sheets. So when this match started, all of the fans were already on the page of, you know what, forget both these guys. We don't care. And we're just going to get ourselves over.
Exactly. I think while we're on the subject of Bryan and having great matches, I think our eco-friendly champion had a Mania match of 18 seconds.
That's the one I was going to say, dude.
I could
he
say
sure did.
that
He sure did.
We all probably deserved, and Bryan probably deserved a little better out of that one. So I guess match-wise, I guess there was actually better matches out there.
No
matches.
You're absolutely right. Like that, it was Sheamus versus Daniel Bryan, the opening match of WrestleMania 28, which allow me to sneak in a quick plug here. As an opening match, this is one of the things that I've been covering with the intern with our WrestleMania series over on Patreon, but they're public posts. You can all see them on our Facebook page. But this is one of the things we've been covering, and I had covered this match recently. And yeah, I forgot that even happened, but that was a WrestleMania match. It was 18 seconds long. Sheamus beat Daniel Bryan to win the World Heavyweight Championship in 18 seconds. And I hate squash matches in general, but I really hate them on pay-per-views. Like, what is even the point? Any pay-per-view, let alone WrestleMania. But yeah, any pay-per-view, forget it. Now let's move on to the next one.
Hold on, before we move on, I'm glad Argyle brought that up. Because while you and intern were talking, that was the one match. I'm like, I know he got squashed in a match at WrestleMania, and for me, a person that likes wrestling, but not as how you and Argyle and intern get really into it. I'm more of a mark than anything. It sucked watching that pay-per-view. I mean that match at WrestleMania. Like, what were they thinking?
You know, I think what they were thinking was, all right, so that was WrestleMania 28 that it started, and they had Cena versus Rock, which was going to be the main event, but there was no title on the line, so they had all these other titles. They had to have different matches for the titles. And they also knew that Undertaker and Triple H were going to have that end of an era steel cage match, that Hell in a Cell match. And so with those two being the main event and not having anything to do with the titles, they have a lot of titles. So they had to fit that in at other points. Now, I don't agree with them doing a squash to win it. Like I watched several opening matches for the sake of the article series intern and I have been doing, and there could have been a way to fit that in without having it be an 18-second squash, but I think that ultimately the way they executed it, where Daniel Bryan's like, oh, let me just get a quick kiss from AJ Lee over here, and he's so like focused on that Sheamus catches him off guard with the brogue kick and gets the pin. as far as squash matches go, like it's not the worst thing that could have happened. I just don't like the idea of squash matches at Mania. Like they could have done something else, shortened a couple other matches, and then had Sheamus and Daniel Bryan do what 6 minutes.
Yeah, that would work. Now I haven't watched that match with commentary in a long time. Please at least tell me that Michael Cole wasn't screaming about what a nerd Bryan was that entire time.
I can tell you with certainty that no, Michael Cole was not screaming about how much of a nerd Daniel Bryan was this entire time. He didn't have time to. It was only 18. If the match had gone 6 minutes, he probably would have worked it in, but he didn't. Yeah. So here we are.
All right. So moving on to the next little category here, we're going to be talking about worst celebrity involvement.
Oh, yes.
So throughout WrestleMania, there's been a lot of celebrities. And then which one? Pretty much talk about which one's your least favorite, which one was the worst one. Last time we started with PBR, so intern, let's start this off.
Mine is a lot more low key. For me, the one that always just grates my nerves because she was such a big part of that show was Susan St. James doing commentary at WrestleMania 2. In a way, she was like the prototype, the prototype Renee Young. Instead of going "oh" after every move with her, it was "uh-oh." And throughout that whole leg of WrestleMania, she was doing commentary just every 10, 15 seconds. Uh-oh, uh-oh, uh-oh.
Hey, intern. Like for those of us out there who haven't, well, I shouldn't say us because I've read all of them, but for those of us out there who haven't read the WrestleMania series that we're writing over on Patreon, which is free, we're linking to it on our Facebook page. For those of us that haven't read those, who was Susan St. James?
Yeah, she was an actress who did Macmillan and Wife was a crime drama series in the 70s before my time, so I only knew about that when I hit Wikipedia. She did I can't even remember the name of the comedy she did in the 80s.
You know what? I don't even blame you. That like we're talking about 96 celebrities. Like it's pretty out there.
The main was married to a guy you may have heard of if you were around the 80s named Dick Ebersol. He was
I've heard of him.
Yeah, he was an executive at NBC. He's the guy that was responsible for Saturday Night Main Event being a thing.
Yep.
So if you ever wondered why this happened, you could only say "uh-oh" on a repeated loop was doing such a big role. Now you know why.
Perfect. For me, I think my worst celebrity involvement, and like there's a part of me that hates to say this, but for me, the worst celebrity involvement was Snooki at WrestleMania 28, I think it was. Now,
forget that.
Yeah, here's why I hate to say this, because at WrestleMania 2, they had Mr. T again, because of course he was a part of WrestleMania 1, and it was a big time main event, brought a lot of eyeballs in, fine. WrestleMania 2, they brought him in. He had a boxing match with Roddy Piper. It was terrible. It was not entertaining. But the thing is, the reason that's not my choice for worst celebrity involvement is because at least he already had a resume at that point of bringing people into WWF. Like people were watching because of his involvement the previous year. So as bad as that match was, I'm going to ignore it, and I'm going to go with Snooki. And here's why I'm going to go with Snooki. She actually did some pretty decent gymnastic things in that match. Like, she was fine. But, it was a few spots here and there. The reason I hate it as a WrestleMania involvement is because, obviously, with WrestleMania, they're going to capitalize on any sort of pop culture they can find. That's been the case for years. That's what they do. And this particular case, they took Snooki because Jersey Shore was a huge thing. But Jersey Shore was so bad that, like, why would anybody enjoy seeing a Jersey Shore crossover to WWE? But that's what they did.
I'd only enjoy it if Kevin Owens came out and gave her the Machine Gun Kelly treatment.
Oh, Man, watching WrestleMania 28, I saw the Machine Gun Kelly performance for John Cena, which in and of itself is hilarious because he's trying to present John Cena as an underdog, which nobody sees John Cena as an underdog.
As I would say, #LOL what?
Exactly. And yeah, but no, I remember Kevin Owens powerbombing Machine Gun Kelly through a table. Like I've been into Machine Gun Kelly for a lot of years. Not so much recently, but for a while I was really into him. So that was super exciting for me because like it was cool. It's like, oh, I like this rapper. Oh, he's willing to do WWE stuff. And, so there's that. But anyway, so the point is with Snooki at WrestleMania, it was really just, yes, she did some decent things in the ring, but ultimately it was just a crossover. It was transparent. Like Maria Menounos, when she was in a match at WrestleMania, yeah, that was also a crossover, but it was way less transparent because Maria Menounos is a legitimate wrestling fan. They weren't promoting what she does on her other networks. It was just, yeah, we're going to have her in here. So Snooki did more in the ring than Maria Menounos did, but Snooki's involvement was based entirely on a crossover, whereas Maria Menounos' involvement was based entirely on, hey, this chick loves wrestling and she's on this other network, so it's a good, deal for everybody. So that's my choice for worst celebrity involvement, Snooki.
All right. Just so we don't have to waste anybody's brain cells on this, I'm just gonna throw out my worst is Kim Kardashian.
Oh, that was bad too.
And we're moving on. We're just dropping that.
I'm gonna drop it and leave it there, and we're moving on to the next one.
Yes. All right. And this one, the next one that we're gonna talk about, it really pops out just because I forgot what city it was, but the worst venue, the worst city.
Oh yes, worst venue.
Yeah, like, what do you got?
You're going to me first?
Yeah, I'm going to you first.
Okay.
We're switching back.
So here's the deal. The worst venue. There's a part of me that wants to go WrestleMania 2 just because they tried to do New York, Chicago, and LA, and it was way over ambitious. If they did that today, it could work out perfectly, and I'm surprised they haven't tried. But in 1986, that didn't work. But the thing is, all those venues, when you watch that show, like as bad as that show is, you watch that show, the New York crowd, the Chicago crowd, the LA crowd, they're all hot for what's happening in the ring. For me, the worst venue is WrestleMania 11, and that was in Hartford, Connecticut, at the Hartford Civic Center. The last 15 words out of my mouth should tell you why that's the worst WrestleMania venue. We're talking about WrestleMania. For the last 10 years, it's been 10 plus years, it's been football stadiums. Whatever city they're in, it's a football stadium. But no, in WrestleMania 11 in 1995, it was the Hartford Civic Center, home at the time of the Hartford Whalers hockey team. And I mean, the fact that they were in frickin' Connecticut should tell you where the business was at that point. Yes, it was probably a sellout, but it was probably 11,000 fans total. Like, it was, everything about WrestleMania 11 felt like a house show, but it was WrestleMania, and that's bad. So that's my choice. Worst venue, Hartford Civic Center, WrestleMania 11. Go.
Yeah, that's actually pretty good. I'm going with WrestleMania 7, which had a interesting little change in venue.
That's a great choice as well.
I'm trying to remember trying to look at the exact venue names again because it's been a while since I wrote about it in our best 34 years of WrestleMania series. Patreon.com/Kayfabe Soup. Be sure to check that out.
Also available on our Kayfabe Soup Facebook page. We're linking to it every day.
So yeah, it was originally supposed to be held at the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum, which is a very large venue. Let's see what the capacity on that was again here.
I think the capacity there for wrestling would have to be 100,000.
Yeah, it was about 100,000. It was about 100,000.
Yeah.
To give you an idea how close they came to filling that number, attendance for WrestleMania 7 was 16,158.
All right, so before you continue, let's try and picture everything we know about WrestleMania 7 with the matches, everything that happened. Try and picture that in a stadium, an outdoor stadium, where you have 100,000 seating capacity and 16,000 people are there.
And the best
what do you think that would look like?
Oh, it would probably look like your average TNA event back before they switched to Impact.
Beautiful.
Thank you. But yeah, my favorite part about that too is that they even kayfabed us on the reason and said it was the reason they changed was because Sergeant Slaughter was getting death threats over the whole Iraq war thing and the war profiteering.
Yep, they were like, no, we had to go to a smaller indoor venue because everybody was safer this way.
Everyone was safer. All 16,000, 100,000. Yes.
Yep.
Good job, WWF. Good job.
All right, GRJ, do you have any other category for us for the worst of WrestleMania awards?
Not for tonight. I think we're gonna close on out here. Is there anything? I'm sorry.
I was gonna say it's definitely worth pointing out. So obviously next week, this week we did the worst of WrestleMania. Next week we're gonna do the best of WrestleMania. Basically the same categories we just covered tonight, but we will do, depending on how the episode goes, maybe a few other categories here and there. Like the best of WrestleMania. Yeah, it's a fun discussion. When you talk about best of WrestleMania, there's all kinds of stuff you can come up with. So we're gonna do that next week, but yeah, GRJ, take us away.
All right, so first of all, I want to plug the page. Started off on Facebook. We'll always be on Facebook. We also have Instagram. We have Twitter. We have our Patreon that everybody has been working really hard on. This podcast, we are on Anchor, Spotify, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Stitcher,
and YouTube.
Oh, and YouTube. Thank you so much. I completely slipped my mind on that one.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
But yeah, pretty much it. Go like, subscribe, do whatever you want to do.
5-star reviews would be very much helpful.
Oh, 5-star reviews. Do it.
We don't use star reviews here.
We're not Meltzer?
No.
Japan.
Hey, Meltzer may not be reviewing our stuff here, but if you go into Apple Podcasts, like if you're like me and you have an iPhone and you listen to all your podcasts on the Apple Music thing, right there, just it's on the bottom. Like you bring your podcast up, go scroll down a little bit, rate this podcast, rate it 5 stars. It makes a huge difference for us.
It is so easy, even I do it, and I'm lazy.
All right, guys. So we're gonna be signing off. Any last words?
No. I think I've said about everything I want to say. So peace out.
Arriba.
Okay, Argyle.
Yeah, this is Argyle, one half of the Predictions Game Tag Team Champions.
Tag Team Champions of the world!
I can't believe he kicked us out of ringside before. I'm still
totally
on that.
muting him.
Am I muted?
No, not yet.
Okay, good. I totally imagine you like a WWE referee just kicking us out of ringside for our ringside shenanigans.
Oh yeah. Send him to the locker room. Nope, done. Kick him out.
Kicked out of ringside. Yeah. Top
guys out. Top guys out.
Top guys out.